The following program is being brought to you on the Seventh Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit seventhwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Empowering Your Soul with Lisa Ouellet. If you're ready to make personal changes in your life and the lives of those around you, get ready for an hour of encouragement, enlightened guests, and engaging stories. Now, here is your host, Lisa Ouellet.
Welcome to Empowering Your Soul. I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet. Today is October 17th, and I'm doing a show called Learning Compassion and Forgiveness After a Tragic Loss. I am so fortunate to have with me today Sheree Burlington, and we're going to be talking to her in just a quick moment. I did want to take a second and just say thank you so much for last week's guest, healingcrystals.com. It was such an amazing show. I learned a lot about crystals and gemstones that I did not know, and I was able to implement it a week or so ago with the full moon. I did some of the suggestions that they gave to me. So that was really, really nice. And thank you so much, Lourdes and Tara, for taking the time to speak with us. Had so much positive feedback. And I also want to take a moment to just tell you that I have a YouTube video out doing weekly card readings, and that's available on the side of my page, on my host page, on the links. And that's fairly new. I started doing that. So at the end of the show, the card readings that I'm doing for the listeners going to be a little different. And I've been pulling just a soul coaching card and a crystal card as well too. So we'll be still continuing to do that. So thank you so much for all the listeners. I really, really appreciate every one of you writing in and sending messages and showing your support and your encouragement. I am here for you. The shows are for you. So please keep writing in and letting me know what you like, what you don't. Send me comments, questions, concerns, anything like that. I'm really open to hearing everything. So that being said, I am so fortunate, like I said, to have Sheree Burlington here with me. In today's show, we're going to be talking with her. She's a mother who has been spiritually transformed by the loss of her 19-year-old son, Neal. Sheree's going to share her story with us and the lessons of compassion and forgiveness which resulted from this life-altering experience. She's no longer afraid of death, and she now knows that life doesn't end when the human body dies. This message was clearly driven home by her son, Neal, who's become a bridge to connect his mom with other grieving families. We're also going to learn more about the foundation that she created called BRAP 33, B-R-A-P 33, and she started this to educate parents about motorcycle track racing as a safer alternative to street racing. So we're going to hear how this great tragedy has healed and empowered her to move forward on an unexpected journey of spiritual enlightenment. So that being said, I am so fortunate to have with me, and she's sitting right here next to me. So thank you so much today, Sheree, for being a guest on my show.
You're welcome, Lisa. I'm happy to be here with you today.
I do want to take this moment, first and foremost, and say that loss of anybody in your family is incredibly difficult, and no parent should have to go through what you went through. So I'm sure I speak for millions out there, no parent should have to go through this kind of a loss. So thank you for taking the time. I'm sure this is probably difficult for you. So thank you for taking the time to share your story with everybody and let us know, you're such a strong person. And
I actually find the process of sharing this story healing.
Yeah, therapeutic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So I guess it's such and I know we're sitting here together, and you brought a kind of a map too. You kind of drew out not a map, but you drew out, what do you call that?
I call it a mystery because you're talking about how
how she met me is quite the interesting story. I'm going to let her share the story first about Neal. So
sure,
why don't you tell the listeners as much as you want to, whatever you're comfortable with.
Sure.
Just the story of the loss.
Sure. So my son Neal was 19 years old, and he was a very fast kid. He was interested in anything that went fast, anything that had a motor. He had lost his license. He had been arrested for reckless driving. So he was a kid who really enjoyed going as fast as he could. So on August 20th in the afternoon, I came home from
This was a couple years ago?
This was 2 years ago, August 20th, 2012. I came home, and minutes after arriving, there was a knock on the door. And I looked out the door, and there were policemen standing on my stairs. And they came in my house and asked if I was the mother of Neal Burlington. And I said yes. And they said, that he died.
Wow.
He died in a motorcycle street racing accident. And it's funny, 2 years later, I'm still as surprised to hear that come out of my mouth as I was the day that it happened.
I can only imagine. I'm getting goosebumps, just confirmation goosebumps as you're talking.
It's very perplexing because, death is a fact of life.
Right.
We are all going to die, and we're all going to die in all kinds of different ways. But when your 6'5", noisy teenage son leaves the house one day and never comes home again,
right.
It's very perplexing. I'm amazed. So, so he and 3 friends were out on a hot summer day in August. They had just graduated a couple of months before, and they were going too fast. They came around a blind corner and couldn't make the corner. Neal and another rider went down, and at the moment that they went down, a car came around the corner, and Neal slid into the car and was killed immediately. And his friend hit the only telephone pole for miles, naturally, and was medevaced by helicopter to Boston with very serious injuries.
Right.
The part of the story that people don't know, and when they hear it, they're confused by it, is that the woman that was driving the car that Neal slid into left the scene of the accident and went home, leaving my son dead on the side of the road and his friend, critically injured on the side of the road.
Crazy.
And, I know that people do all kinds of things out of fear. We make all kinds of wrong choices out of fear. And I know that was something that was driving her that day.
She must have been scared out of her mind.
She was terrified. And, maybe she had a reason to be terrified. I've always thought that there was something happening that day that we don't know about with her. But the thing that's kind of surprised me about myself to the reaction is that, short moments after getting this information of how Neal died and the circumstances, my first reaction was, oh my God, this poor woman driving down the street on her way home, and then this nightmare unfolds in front of her, and the next thing you know, there's a dead boy.
Right. Wow. How amazing of you to think of that. I don't know that would be my first thought.
Well, I was surprised that it was mine because, I have to give you a little bit of backstory on Sheree Burlington. I have, I have this sort of persona of being a broad and a bit of a cynic and, a little bit of an attitude and edge.
I can see that.
And so it's not that compassion didn't come naturally to me. I think I've always been a compassionate person. It was sometimes something I needed to reach for. It was not always
right there at the forefront.
And so my response to this woman leaving was, I guess sympathy for how difficult it must have been to have this happen to her.
And you must have been in shock too.
And I was. So, one of the things that happened to me that caused me to recognize that I wasn't the same person after Neal left than I was before he left.
Yeah, you and I talked before the show. You said that you kind of not qualify, but you look at things as before Neal and after Neal, right?
Yeah, sort of like when you have a baby, it's before the baby and after the baby. So I had the baby and he became a man, and now it's before he left and after he left.
Okay.
But the day after Neal died, I was in the grocery store, and I was just sort of like a zombie putting one foot in front of the other, and I remember looking around at all of the people in the store and thinking, you can't tell. You can't look at me and have any idea what I'm going through.
Right.
And immediately behind that thought was like, oh my gosh, I can't tell what you're going through.
Wow, you're giving me goosebumps again.
It was this profound feeling of empathy and compassion that like overwhelmed me. It was like, I remember thinking, if anyone in here, I'm going to get emotional, is feeling even the tiniest bit of what I'm feeling right now, I need to be gentle.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I joked around for months after that, calling myself Sister Mary Sheree because I've been transformed from this grumpy, cynical woman into this person who looks at everybody and recognizes our incredibly fragile humanity.
Right.
So that's the basic story, and the change for me was immediate and almost like unrecognizable. Even people that have known me for years are saying, "You're different."
Right.
And of course, you would be different after you bury your only child.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine. Our kids are close in age, and I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, but different in a different kind of way, different than
so how do you think
a grieving parent.
Well, how do you think you came to the forgiveness stage? Do you think it was just you came by it naturally, or?
I feel like it was something that was
Handed
granted to
yeah,
grace or given to me or something, because I didn't ask, I wasn't seeking, I just was overwhelmed with this incredible feeling of forgiveness. And I'm the type of person, when I'm driving down the street, I'm pretty vocal in my car, and that went away. And
yeah.
I
had
really,
a transformation of sorts.
I really did. That surprised me and everyone around me. So it's been a very interesting journey for me, learning to live my life without my child. He was my purpose for being around. He was a high maintenance kid, and also getting to know this new person that I am and trying to understand what's happened to me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's an incredible transformation. And I mean, we're gonna go to a commercial break really shortly. And when we come back, I'd love for you to share with the listeners. It's such an interesting story, and I know Neal had a huge hand in it, and on how you and I met, and the whole story, like we were just talking about, of how everybody is interconnected. And again, that's Neal's doing. Like and as I'm talking about him, every time I talk about him, I know he's right here. I get goosebumps down my whole entire body every time. He's just such an amazing, I never got to meet him in person, but he's such an amazing spirit, amazing soul, that I know that he's part of your, I don't want to say lesson, but he's a huge teacher for you on the other side. So I believe he's helping you with these compassion and forgiveness lessons.
That's good.
So yeah, it's a fantastic story. I don't mean that. I mean, it's a fantastic journey that you're on, and thank you for taking the time to share your story.
I understand.
So we are going to, well, actually, you know what? I think we have a little bit of time left. Let's see. I don't even know that we have enough time to get into the whole story of how we met or how we became acquainted, but let's talk really quickly about, I know you just talked about how you define life before Neal and after Neal, right? Do you find that to be in every aspect of everything, or?
I mean, yeah, Neal is in my life and in my mind every day, all day. I mean, it's not like I'm obsessed thinking about my dead child, but every memory that I have of the last 20 years of my life includes this child. He's interwoven through my relationships and my friendships and my family. So he's always present in my mind, but I guess what I've come to realize is that he's just plain old always present.
He is around it. And we've also come to realize that through friends that we know that I didn't realize that we knew at the time, he's come through to other people as well as the way we met. So let's just let's stop for a quick commercial break here. And if anybody's listening and you want to reach Sheree, Sheree, why don't you tell them? I know that you're also the owner. I should have said this at the beginning. You're also the owner of Museware Pottery.
I am.
Yeah. And you would tell us just really quickly. We have like a minute or so. But
about my company. My company is Museware Pottery, and we design wedding gifts, personalized wedding gifts. So we paint designs on pottery, and we sell it to gift stores nationwide. So I do that. I do a lot of other design work. I'm a little bit everywhere, but my primary job is Museware Pottery. And I've got a staff of 2 people who are loyal and wonderful.
Okay, and you can be reached at what is it? The www.about.me/Sheree Burlington.
That has links to everywhere on
Okay, perfect. So if you're just, so if you want to reach Sheree, you can get in touch with her for more information. Contact her there. We'll be back right after this quick commercial break.
This is the Seventh Wave Channel on the Voice America Network.
Lisa Ouellet is honored to assist you as you move forward from imprisonment to empowerment. Individual intuitive sessions are available in person, by telephone, or via Skype. Visit www.lisawillette.com. While there, you can also find information about 1-hour and half-hour Reiki sessions, life coaching, and tuning into your intuition classes. These classes will help you learn to trust your intuition and tune into yourself more easily. Mention that you heard about us on Empowering Your Soul and receive 10% off your next session. Visit lisawillette.com today.
Have you friended us on Facebook yet? Why not? Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for the keywords Voice America. Once you are part of our Facebook network, you'll receive daily messages about what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and new happenings of the Voice America Talk Radio Network. And you can add your voice to the always active discussions on our wall. Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for Voice America.
Take us on the go. It's even easier now. The Voice America Talk Radio Network has launched our mobile app for iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry. Visit the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market to download the app powered by Aircast. It's free and no registration is necessary. In minutes, you could be enjoying your favorite Voice America Talk Radio host, no matter where you are, in the car, out and about, while traveling, or anytime you can't be close to your computer. Catch up on the archives you've missed or discover new shows on the spot. Search Voice America at your favorite app store.
This is the Voice America Seventh Wave Channel.
You are listening to Empowering Your Soul. To reach Lisa Ouellet, you may send an email to lisawillette@comcast.net. That's lisawillette@comcast.net. Now, back to Empowering Your Soul.
Welcome back to Empowering Your Soul. I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet. If you're just tuning in now, I am talking with Sheree Burlington. And right before the commercial break, she was letting us know she's a designer, a licensed artist, seeker, storyteller, and humorist, as well as the owner of Museware Pottery in Manchester, New Hampshire. And she just shared with us that she is a self-described cynic. She did find herself spiritually transformed by the sudden tragic loss of her 19-year-old son, Neal, to a motorcycle street racing accident. And in the weeks following his death, messages from Neal began to reach her, introducing her to a local community of healers and mediums. That's actually how we met. So we're going to tell that story in just a minute. Sheree found herself tied to a group of area parents after that who had all recently lost teenage sons. And all four boys were tied to one another socially, too. And I'm getting goosebumps again. I love the confirmation. So Neal continues to act as a bridge to connect Sheree with other grieving families. And she's also, like I said before, started an educational foundation called BRAP33.com. And its mission is to introduce motorcycle street racers and their families to relative safety of the racetrack. So if you have or know of a speed-loving kid, please visit www.brap33.com. And like we just said right before the break, Sheree's art and design projects can be found at www.about.me/Sheree Burlington. So she's always interested in,
sharing my stuff.
Absolutely. So welcome back, Sheree.
Thank you.
To the second segment of our show. So it's an interesting story. If you want to share I'll just tell you, I am a psychic medium, but this particular day, I had a good friend of mine who I've had on my show several times, Carissa Dorman. She's an amazing medium. I had a girl party, like a girls' night out at my house, and I had 5 or 6 girlfriends here at my home, and Carissa was doing mediumship group readings for everybody, standing up and reading everybody in the group. And one of our mutual, well, actually, it's a funny story, but my friend Maria was here, and the message came through for Maria. So you go ahead and share the story, Sheree.
So I got a call days later from Maria's daughter, Rebecca, who is good friends with Neal.
Yep.
And she said Neal came through in a reading and gave me all of this information. And, the number 33 came up as being significant to the accident and described my son. And, I put that away, and I was happy that he was reaching out.
And what people don't know, let me interrupt for just one quick moment. So like I said, there was a group of, actually I'm thinking back, I think there were 6 or 7 of us in the room, and we were all pretty positive. We have a pretty outgoing friend who's got a pretty big personality. We were all pretty sure she was going to be the first one to get a reading, and Carissa was kind of standing looking at her. And then all of a sudden she kind of turned and she just kind of looked at Maria, and she started talking about this young boy who had passed in a motorcycle accident. And I mean, Maria hadn't shared this story with any of us, so nobody else knew who this was. But I guess what I'm telling you is he wanted to be the first one to come through. He wanted to tell his story, and it was really, I want to say maybe just 2 weeks after his passing.
It was very, very brief.
It was like the first week in September, so it was very, very quickly. So anyway, just to continue.
So I get this call from Rebecca, and she lets me know that Neal came through, and I don't even know how much time went by. Maybe just a couple of days later, a woman who works in my building, and my building has got hundreds of businesses. It's a mixed use. It's a big old beat-up mill. Came in and said, I am so sorry to hear about your son. I can't even explain the convoluted group of people that she knew. Right. Her son turned out to be friends with the man who found Neal on the side of the road.
Oh, wow.
It just was so complicated that I actually had to draw a schematic to
that's what you
understand
brought
the
with you
relationships.
today.
So it was all these mothers and children, 4 mothers, 4 children, through this complex web that all knew one another. And I ended up calling, I don't even know how to describe this. I ended up calling one of the people who was at the reading.
Yes.
Turns out she did Reiki. I didn't know what Reiki was, so I said, "Well, what is it?" And she said, "It's healing energy." And I said, "I need
absolutely.
I totally need healing energy."
Right.
So I went to.
We had a Reiki clinic at Deb Gieman's Bedford Body Care.
Exactly.
We were doing a Reiki clinic that night.
I went in there, and I think I must have, the stars must have aligned that day, because I had a whole room full of Reiki practitioners.
Well, there was about 4 of us working on you. You had 4 pairs of hands on you, and it was an amazing experience. So thank you for allowing me to be part of that.
It was incredible. And it just, so all of these women that I met that day, I have run into over and over again, and I realized they're all connected.
And tell the connection of Deb, who was the one doing the Reiki clinic.
Deb's son is friends with, I can't do this.
No?
Yeah, well, I can try. It's just, it may not translate. Deb's son is friends with the woman who works in my building, her son, who also worked with the man who found Neal on the side of the road. It was so complex that I literally had to draw it so that I could understand the relationships. So, I just continued to hear from Neal through other people.
Right.
And so shortly after that happened, I'd like to talk a little bit about how I got involved with all of these other families.
Absolutely.
Can I lead into that?
Absolutely. You share your story anywhere you want.
So shortly after this, these readings started coming through to me, I just started, looking around on his Facebook page and stuff, and I realized that 4 families, including mine, had lost 19-year-old sons in 6 months in the Manchester, New Hampshire area. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized they all knew each other and had mutual friends. So the first thing I did was start to contact these mothers through Facebook and say, this is who I am. My son knows your son this way. And it's just they all ride motocross. I mean, they were all the same kid.
Yeah.
They were the same.
And Neal had a hand in that.
Apparently so.
Oh, I believe that with every fiber of my being.
Yeah, apparently so. So I am now a member of a really, a questionable club of parents who have all lost their teenage sons. And one of the things I think that's been so healing about it is that, I can tell you what it's like to lose a son. You have no idea.
Absolutely.
I could talk until we both die, and you will never know what it
So
feels
I'm
like.
hoping that some of the I'm hoping that some of the listeners out there, if they've experienced this, that they can relate to you and that you can give them some hope.
Yeah,
or
because
give
it
them
cannot be explained, because no matter what you think it is, no matter what kind of pain, the emptiness, it is so much bigger and deeper than that. It's incredible. So the first thing that I did was I got all of these families together.
Yes.
And, it was very awkward at first. We didn't know one another,
Of course, that must have been
and
really
we
awkward.
met at one of the parents' houses, and, just we're all very, very awkward. And then we started talking about our kids, and all the awkwardness just fell away because, we were talking about...
You shared a common ground, too.
Common ground, but also, just to be the parent of a 19-year-old boy.
Right.
And, they're on the cusp of manhood.
Sure.
They think they know everything. They know about 20% of everything, or maybe even less than that. And it was just so freeing to sit there and talk about your kid that's gone to someone who really, really gets it.
Of course.
I don't have to soften it, or when I'm talking to these moms, I don't have to worry about making them feel awkward.
Of course.
That I'm talking about my son, because they're in it with me
100% of the way.
And it's been awesome for all of us. When we get together, we're going through different stages of healing. The last time we got together, I think our sons had been gone for 18 months. And we were starting to move on and go on vacations and, return to real life again and feel the guilt that comes along with, like every time you catch yourself laughing, oh, crap, I shouldn't be laughing. I lost my son.
I'm sure that must be so difficult.
It's very, very confusing. You don't know how to behave. Is this appropriate? And when you're with 4 other parents, you're realizing it's all appropriate.
Right.
And so we get together, not a lot, but we're in touch with one another regularly, and we talk about our boys. We talk about what it's like to lose them, and what it's like to rebuild your life without them. And
you're a strong woman, Sheree. I know that I just can't even imagine that, and I know that I can't even remember the timing. I'm going to say I believe it was. I know he passed in August, and Carissa came to my house the first weekend in September. And then you came for the Reiki clinic a few weeks later. I think at the Reiki clinic, I was telling you that I was going to be at some fair doing a reading, and I think you came in and had a reading with me a couple weeks later. And not to go into your whole reading, but I just remember telling you that you were stronger than you gave yourself credit for, and that there was this relationship coming for you, and you had just lost a child. You weren't looking for a relationship. You weren't looking for anything. You were like, no, this is, I'm healing, I'm grieving, I'm doing whatever. But again, not to go into too much personal detail here, but you've been with that same person now since about that October, right? And I believe that it's helping you in your process. You're moving along in life.
I'll go into the reading because, I didn't not believe or believe in all of this stuff. I just didn't really think about it.
You didn't know anything about it.
Before Neal left, I didn't know anything about this stuff, really, not really. And so when I went to see Lisa, she was pulling cards, and she's got this deck of cards, and she says, oh, I see a relationship. And I roll my eyes. And then she pulls out another deck of cards. Oh, look at this relationship. And I roll my eyes again. She goes through 4 decks of cards, and every deck of cards tell me I'm going to have a relationship. Then she says, I'm going to travel to Europe. And I'm thinking, I'm paying money.
Great.
I'm paying money for somebody to tell me I'm going to Europe on a relationship that I have no interest in. Well, as things happen the way they do, I met a man who came to my pottery studio to fix my broken kiln. Yep. And I think I've known this man in many other lifetimes because we are so much alike. It's almost embarrassing. And we did go to Europe, near Germany, where you said we were going to go.
I love it when spirit's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for making me look good. So, it's...
But again, so I guess my point in bringing all this up is that you didn't you didn't know what Reiki was. You'd never really probably had a psychic reading before, or you didn't know what a medium was. Now all of a sudden you have this tragic loss, and you're thrust into this world of all of us, of healers and mediums and psychics and spiritual journey. You've taken Reiki since then, right? You've been attuned, and you're just on this journey to enlightenment. And do you feel like it helps you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things that I've come to realize, this man in my life, Tony, drives like a psycho. And so one of the things I say to him is that I'm not afraid to die. And I mean that.
Right.
I am not afraid to die.
You have said that before.
I am afraid to have broken legs or end up in the hospital. But I am not afraid to die, because I hear from my son so often, so clearly, that it is him, and not just him, other people that I care about. His body might be gone. He may have totaled his car. Right. But he's not gone.
Oh, absolutely not. Every time I say his name, he comes right in, and I feel him. I get goosebump confirmation. He loves being the advocate for the other side. He's very vocal.
He's so involved in, as an example, I had Carissa to my house, and I invited only the parents that had lost their children.
Oh, that's a fantastic
Only
thing.
the parents. So she shows up, and there's, 8 of us sitting around, and one by one, all of these boys came through. And I remember at one point her looking up and saying, there is so much male energy in this room. And then I remember looking and seeing the look on her face when she said, you have all lost sons. You've all lost sons.
Crazy.
I got a hair on my leg standing up right now. My arms. And Neal was there with some of these other boys who were very nervous to come forward, guiding them and helping them. And that's exactly how he was in life.
I'm sad that I didn't get a chance to meet him in real life, because I love his energy from the other side. Every time he's around, it's such an amazing energy. He's got an amazing soul, amazing spirit.
Well, we're all part of the same soul group.
Yeah, I do
you'll
know
see
that,
him again.
Yeah. No, of course. Now, what is the significance of the 3? Because he brought forward that a couple times, right?
He brought the number 33 came across a number of times in readings, and Carissa would ask, do you have any understanding of it? I didn't understand where it came from. I just knew that it was everywhere.
Right.
And I'm talking about everywhere, in account numbers, just everywhere. And I started asking around, and it turned out one of the connections, I call this boy the first rider. He was the rider who did not get hurt in this accident, who made the corner and just, went on to have a happy life. His football number was 33.
Oh.
And I don't know the significance of his connection to what happened. I just know that that's where the number sort of originates from. But I find it so many places in my life that it almost feels like it's a joke.
Well, 3 is my favorite number. 333 is my lucky number. So when we started talking, you started sharing that with me. I was like, wow, this really resonates with me, because to me, 3 is a spiritual number. Yeah. 333 is a hugely spiritual number.
And that's what I've come to learn, is that it's about spiritual growth and a spiritual journey. And so it seemed appropriate that I attach that number to the BRAP Foundation as a way to sort of tie it together.
Absolutely. So we're gonna stop here at this time, and we're gonna take a quick commercial break again. When we come back, I'd love for you to share more about the BRAP Foundation and talk about that, and anything else you want to share with us about your story. Because I know that there's so many synchronicities. It's such a crazy, amazing story. So please, if anybody has any questions or interest in the show, you can reach me directly at Lisa Ouellet at Comcast.net. That's my Comcast.net. That's my email. I hope you're listening live, and if you're not able to listen live, please listen to you can listen on my host page anytime after the show. You can find us on iTunes, on the Stitcher app or Voice America app. There's so many different ways to listen to the show. It's such an amazing story. And I want to hear from Sheree after we come back from the break about a Buddhism quote that's turning poison into medicine. I think that's a great quote. So we'll take a break now. We'll be back right after this.
This is the Seventh Wave Channel. on the Voice America Network.
Take us on the go. It's even easier now. The Voice America Talk Radio Network has launched our mobile app for iPhone, Android, or BlackBerry. Visit the Apple iTunes App Store, BlackBerry App World, or Android Market to download the app powered by Aircast. It's free and no registration is necessary. In minutes, you could be enjoying your favorite Voice America Talk Radio host, no matter where you are, in the car, out and about, while traveling, or anytime you can't be close to your computer. Catch up on the archives you've missed or discover new shows on the spot. Search Voice America at your favorite app store.
Have you friended us on Facebook yet? Why not? Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for the keywords Voice America. Once you are part of our Facebook network, you'll receive daily messages about what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and new happenings of the Voice America Talk Radio Network. And you can add your voice to the always active discussions on our wall. Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for Voice America.
Lisa Ouellet is honored to assist you as you move forward from imprisonment to empowerment. Individual intuitive sessions are available in person, by telephone, or via Skype. Visit www.lisawillette.com. While there, you can also find information about 1 hour and half-hour Reiki sessions, life coaching, and tuning into your intuition classes. These classes will help you learn to trust your intuition and tune into yourself more easily. Mention that you heard about us on Empowering Your Soul and receive 10% off your next session. Visit lisawillette.com today.
This is the Voice America 7th Wave Channel.
You are listening to Empowering Your Soul. To reach Lisa Ouellet, you may send an email to lisawillette@comcast.net. That's lisawillette@comcast.net. Now, back to Empowering Your Soul.
Welcome back to Empowering Your Soul. If you're just tuning in now, I'm your host, Lisa Ouellet, and I'm so privileged to have with me today Sheree Burlington. She's been talking about the tragic loss of her son and how she's learned forgiveness and compassion. Sheree is such an amazing, amazing person herself. I wish you all had the privilege of sitting here across from her. It's really very humbling. So I'm very, very privileged that she's taking the time to be here. I know this is a very difficult thing to talk about. So right before the commercial break, we were talking about the significance of the number 3, and you were talking about BRAP 33. So why don't you share a little bit more about this, because this is a foundation you started, right?
Right. It's in the process of being built. Life gets in the way sometimes. But the word BRAP, Neal called me up about a week before he died, all excited. Mom, I'm getting BRAP on my motorcycle license plate. And I said, ooh, congratulations. What does it mean? And he said, it's the sound a motorcycle makes. And I said, oh, congratulations. And, we hung up and we just kept on waiting for the BRAP motorcycle license plate to show up, and it never did. And I think that the price was too expensive for him. So it just we used the term BRAP to sort of refer to Neal and this whole thing that had happened, and 3 people in his life ran out and got it tattooed on their arms and legs. And, it just became this phrase that we would refer to.
And I was driving down the street sometime over this past weekend, and I saw a truck in front of me, and it said BRAP, and it had I don't know what number was after it, but it definitely said that on the license plate.
Funny? Yeah. So in the motorcycle world, they know what it means. It's more of a dirt bike sound than a motorcycle sound.
But I was so excited because I'm like, oh, he's here with us, just happy that because I was thinking, we're doing the show in a couple days, and it's just exciting.
So while we were at work one day, Nicole, my number 1, the girl who helps me run my company, said, it'd be really cool if BRAP could stand for something, if we could come up with something that it stood for, like Burlington Racing and Pottery.
Ooh, I love it.
Well, it doesn't make sense, but it does in kind of a weird way. So we just decided that BRAP stood for Burlington Racing and Pottery. So one of the things that I thought about, Neal died because he was racing. They were street racing.
Right.
And I can tell you that I grew up around motorcycles my whole life. My brother started racing motorcycles at the racetrack in 1989. We are a motorcycle family. I put Neal on his first dirt bike when he was 4 years old.
Okay.
Motorcycle motorcycles and going fast and that whole thing, it's just a part of who we are.
Sure.
So I started thinking about my experience on the racetrack with my brother. My brother had a premonition of his own death one day. He was riding his motorcycle, the way he describes it, and people really do this thing. He said he was riding down this road, coming around a corner at 150 miles an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
This is what people do. And he said, he said, I knew that by the end of the day, I was going to be dead. I knew it.
Oh.
He said, I slowed down. I pulled over to the side of the road. Everyone else passed me. And I stayed in the back of the pack for the rest of the day. And I said, that's it. I'm never racing on the street again. And that following weekend, he went up to the racetrack in Laconia, New Hampshire, which is New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and signed up for the motorcycle racing course. And that's how that whole thing started. I was unemployed at the time, and he asked me if I wanted to go.
Okay.
So I went with him. And they were looking for, they call them corner workers. And the corner workers are the people you see on television with the flags, that wave the flags.
Yep.
So I volunteered to be a corner worker, and I ended up working at the racetrack for over 4 years.
Okay.
As a motorcycle safety crew corner worker. So I was pregnant with Neal. I mean, he grew up, he heard that sound of motorcycles going around the track.
So it was ingrained in him,
So, and I only left corner working when I found out I was pregnant with him, and it seemed not safe to be there. So I started thinking, if more people knew about the racetrack as an option, they wouldn't race on the street, because on the street there are oncoming cars. One killed Neal. There are telephone poles that smashed up Justin.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things that can go wrong, and they do every single day in a split second.
Of course.
And people die all the time on the street. Which is not to say that they don't die on the racetrack.
Of course.
They do. But the racetrack is a controlled environment. There were no oncoming cars, no telephone poles. There's a motorcycle safety crew. There are ambulances on course.
So you started this foundation.
So I started this foundation as an educational foundation. I want parents, when you've got a fast kid, you have a fast kid. That's all they talk about.
Of course.
So if you've got one and you don't want them to be killed on the street, check this out.
Okay.
Find a local track. If you're in New England, there's the track up in Loudon. There are tracks all over the country that have motorcycle training courses. You get your license, which allows you to race on any track in the country.
Okay.
And, it's not cheap.
Absolutely.
But it costs $10,000 to bury a kid.
I was going to say, in the scheme of things, it's probably more cost effective.
So,
thank you for sharing that information. So if you're out there listening, www.brap33.com and look into this safety. This is a safer way for your child. So thank you, Sheree, for starting that. That's fantastic. I know before we run out of time, I know we have a few minutes left, but I wanted to make sure. I thought it was an interesting. I know you and I have talked before the show, and you were telling me about this Buddhism quote, and I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but you talked about turning poison into medicine. Yeah. And I just thought that was fascinating, because this situation that you found yourself in it's kind of like poison. It's not it's not a tasteful thing. It's not a good thing. So would you share that quote with us?
Yeah. I mean, some people never recover from this. Some people's lives are destroyed by the death of a child or the death of a spouse or, a parent or anything.
Losses.
They never can recover from it, and they spend the rest of their lives experiencing that death over and over again.
Right.
Which is poison.
Absolutely.
And so, not through my own devices or anything, I somehow managed to take this thing that could have destroyed me and found the strength that I didn't know that I had.
Of course.
As a result of it.
You are definitely a strong woman.
Which is the medicine, Right. So in Buddhism, they talk about turning poison into medicine as a way to recognize the learning in an experience so that you can come out of the other end transformed by it rather than being destroyed by it.
That's hugely empowering.
It is. And, I wish... There's an expression that I use joking around with this boyfriend, Tony. He's always trying to enlighten me.
Right.
And I always say, you can't flip a switch on at your house and expect the lights to come on in mine. So I spend a great deal of time wishing that I could flip a switch on in my house and turn on your lights.
Right.
I wish that there were a way for me to share this transformation, how I got it, so that when I see people that are in pain and that are letting themselves be destroyed by something, I could say, here, try this.
Well, don't you have another technique that you were talking about, the feeding technique?
Well, yeah. Pearls of wisdom from Anthony. So Anthony, whenever he's trying to share his wisdom with me, tells me that he can, babies either need to be airplane fed or convinced to be fed. That those are the two ways you feed a child. And I said, how about if you leave it on the table and then when they're hungry, they'll eat it.
Right.
I'm the leave it on the table kind of person.
And that's like spiritual enlightenment. When you're ready to move to that place, you'll do it on your own time.
You'll do it on your own
instead
time.
of somebody trying to force that feeling of forgiveness or compassion on you, right?
Because there's no way that you can get this until you get this.
Words of wisdom from Sheree. I love it. Could I ask you this?
Yeah.
If you could give any advice to other parents or anybody else who might have experienced loss, somebody listening in who suffered a similar loss, what would you say?
Find other people.
That's important.
It was transformative for me because there's this incredible loneliness. When you lose something that's so much a part of you, there's an incredible emptiness and loneliness. And the people in our lives that haven't experienced that loss, you can't show them your pain the way you can someone else that's
right.
experienced.
Like you talked about this other group of parents.
I protect my family from my grief because I don't want to see them hurt by it. But when I'm with the moms and the dads, and another thing.
Everything's out on the table.
Grief counseling. I didn't think I needed grief counseling until I started grief counseling.
Okay.
And I can sit across from my therapist and I'll tell you, the grief that comes out in front of him where I don't have to worry about making him feel awkward is very cleansing.
I can only imagine that safety, those people that you can share safely with and not feel awkward or embarrassed. And not that you have anything to feel awkward or embarrassed about.
Just to filter. You want to protect people from your grief because it's big.
Of course.
It's big, it's heavy.
Well, gosh, thank you, Sheree. This has been so... I hope that the listeners, I hope that the people listening in and tuning into the show today, I hope that you've been able to take something away from Sheree's amazing story. I'm telling you, she's an incredible, incredible woman. I'm just so privileged to have met you in the circumstances. Again, I thank Neal. So thank you, Neal, for bringing us, together on this journey, because I'm privileged to be a part of your spiritual journey as you move forward. I'm learning a lot from you, just the stories that we shared, and even for taking the time to be on today's show. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to wrap up the show quickly with I'm going to pull a card for soul coaching, what your soul wants you to know. I'm going to pull a crystal card too to let the listeners know what they can expect coming up for the week. And this would be from... today is the 17th, so this will be from Sunday the 19th to the 24th, right? 25th, next week, the 25th. So the card for the week coming up, what your soul wants you to know, is focus. Okay, so the card is focus. All of my thoughts are directed towards my highest good. So that's important moving forward. And I think that has to do with the show, focusing on what's important for you here today, moving, in your journey. What you focus on is what you create. So put your attention on thoughts that are beautiful, worthwhile, and loving. It's time to focus your intent and your passion on one thing only, rather than being scattered in different directions. So like Sheree was just talking about, compassion and forgiveness, maybe, if you're listening in, maybe that's where your focus is. If you got something else going on in your life, just focus on one particular thing. Your soul wants you to know that what you see around you is the result of what you focus on. So when you direct your thoughts towards good and attract positive experiences and people into your life, you focus on what isn't working. But when you create even more challenging situations by doing that. So if you aren't pleased with the direction that your thoughts are going on, that your life is going down, concentrate on what you desire, not on what you don't want. So to develop inner power, gather your internal energy and focus intently on one thing only. Being scattered in a myriad of directions dilutes your strength. Devote your attention to your career, your relationship, a hobby, or something that you're very passionate about. Diminish your activities that are not essential to your goal, and it'll all just be a matter of time until miracles begin to occur. And the affirmation for this card is, all my thoughts are directed towards my highest good. And the card that I'm going to pull for crystals to go along with that, the gemstone and the crystals that everybody can use to move forward, is, I'm not even sure I can pronounce this card, Integrite. And this is all about, it's for the heart chakra. So that's kind of telling as of today's show. So it helps with the heart chakra. It's a green stone. It's creativity, it's release, it's truth. This card, I pulled the gemstone card, and it's letting you know to focus on your heart chakra and to release those negative emotions that aren't working for you. Focus on the truth. It goes in tandem with the focus card here. The truth will set you free. So creativity, be creative about what it is that you want. If you're listening in and you're a grieving parent, or somebody that's had a loss, find different ways, be creative, find different ways to release this negativity, this guilt that you might be feeling. Get in touch with a different group of people. Like Sheree was just saying, it's comfort to have somebody that understands you, that you don't have to share what's the word I'm looking for, that you don't have to share feeling guilty about. You can just let your emotions flow freely. So that being said, I want to just tell you that next week on the 24th, I'm going to have Dr. Amanda Romania. She's going to be doing a show with us on Akashic Records. She's also a fellow host on the Voice America channel, and she has a show called, I believe it's called Akashic, I'm not sure. I think it's called Akashic Records. But she's going to be talking about Akashic oracles and letting us know the Akashic Records, they contain the energetic prints about the origin and journey of every soul through its lifetime. So we're going to get to hear all about how the Akashic Records help us, how they can show us to access these records for our personal growth, and how to use these amazing powers in our own spiritual journey. So I want to take a moment again to thank you, Sheree, for being here on my show and for sharing your story with us. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy ride for you, but I am so thankful that you did definitely take the time. And I want to thank all the listeners in again. If you have any stories that you'd like to share with me about this, if you want to share the stories, I will forward them to Sheree, or you could get in touch with her directly. Feel free to contact me at any time. Again, listen in, and I'd love to hear your comments. So everybody have a great weekend. TGIF.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Your Soul. Please be sure to join Lisa Ouellet for another engaging program next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time on the Voice America 7th Wave channel. This week, stop feeling imprisoned and start being empowered.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the 7th Wave Network. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit 7thwavenetwork.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.